It is Wednesday, October 23rd, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And, I don't even know how to describe today's jiu-jitsu. I got my ass kicked at jiu-jitsu today. It was a very fun get your ass kicked at jiu-jitsu Wednesday. But I guess I'm still a little dumbfounded because the impossible happened yet a second time. This very, very cute girl that I see at jiu-jitsu every so once in a while. I've seen her a couple times recently. A little while ago, like about a year ago, it seems. She was like, "Oh, I really need to get a drink." Right after class, and it happened to be a day that coincided with this show. So and I told her, I'm like, "Oh man, I'd love to go, but unfortunately I've got this show, and so maybe another night." And so tonight, the impossible fucking happened again. We're closed out for the day for jiu-jitsu, and she's like, "Man, I'm hungry." And that's a subtle, "Hey, would you like to go get something to eat with me?" Well, unfortunately, got the show. And she looked at me like, "Oh yeah, I forgot you got the show tonight." Well, you know what? There are sacrifices for all of our desires in life. And unfortunately, I was not going to sacrifice doing the show so that I could join her this evening. I'm not going to do it. I'm that principled. I know it was dubious as to whether or not we were going to be doing a show this evening, only because I'd almost had some other thing that I had to take care of this evening, but that didn't quite pan out that way, and so I left it open. I didn't provide any notification, and so we're just going to roll with it. And so, like I said, it's like it was iffy whether we were going to do the show, to begin with today. And I almost just went with it and used that as an excuse. But, I think of it as one of those things that once you make that choice, that, I don't have to do the show because, I can always do it tomorrow. Or, I can always do it on Friday. I'm bad enough with putting off getting the things edited and put up on my YouTube channel. I didn't want to get away from the discipline of being here at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and getting to it. So that's what we're going to do. And as far as the class today, I don't know. I'm still in a bit of a funk with jiu-jitsu. And it's nothing to do with jiu-jitsu at all. It's when you're at jiu-jitsu, you want to be like fully minded in being there and whatnot. But I've noticed that depending on what else I've got going on, sometimes that can be a little tough. That if I've got too much stuff going on outside of jiu-jitsu, I start losing my water bottle. I start forgetting my jiu-jitsu jacket at home. Shit like that where my brain's still partly doing what I was doing before going to jiu-jitsu. And so I've been dealing with that a little bit more as of late, the last couple of weeks specifically. But in the not-so-distant future, it's going to clear up. And so we just got to get through it, Just got to go forward and just get through it. Pretty much like jiu-jitsu itself. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down with some music. And, of course, we're going to play some body count, because that's what we do here, at least for the first dance. And let's go with the Ski Mask Way. First dance, here on Coin Metal.
Are hunting for two suspects in a violent home invasion. They are worried that these men
and that was Korn with Blind. Yeah, so I was digging around looking for articles, and we've talked a lot about stable coins and regulatory bodies and their desire to regulate the crypto space and their stupidity. I don't know. I want to say like lack of focus with regard to exactly what their position is supposed to be within cryptocurrencies or defining currencies in general. And I've felt for a long time now that stablecoins are counterfeit fiat. And more importantly, and more in line with this article here, I believe that if there is any kind of legal description for what a stablecoin is, I really believe that security is probably the best definition, the best existing definition for them, because they do have an issuer, that is basically the person's, telling everybody what the market, telling the market what exactly their stable coin is, what it's supposed to be worth, what it's supposed to be evaluated against, so on and so forth. So they do have an issuer, and the viability, or there's a word, solvency of and integrity of the stable coin in question, whether or not the issuer actually has the reserves that they're issuing the stable coin against, and the terms by which the sum in their portfolio is represented by their units of stablecoin. That's all based on them, right? And if there is anything in our space that resembles a security, which is pretty much what I just described, it's a fucking stablecoin. And I know I'm being really circular here, but I'm just going by their description. When you go to the SEC's website and you read their mandate, and I guess it's the Securities and Exchange Protection Act or something like that. I can't remember exactly the title of it, but it is the piece of legislation or whatever that created the SEC and gave it its mandate of what exactly they are supposed to be governing and what aspects of what they're supposed to be governing And anyway, so when they came into the crypto space and started pointing at stuff and saying, this looks like this to us, this looks like that to us, they settled on ICOs and said, oh, hey, that's a security. And the fact of the matter is that ICOs aren't securities. And the reason for that, and by and large, they aren't. There's a few of them that are just outright scams, that don't even actually have any representation in Ethereum that they're supposedly evaluated in. So anyway, I got this thing here. It's on CoinDesk. U.S. lawmaker introduces bill classifying stablecoins as securities. God, that's so awesome. And this is by Nicholas D. It was authored October 22nd, 2019 at 1825 UTC. Congress may consider a bill to classify stablecoins, cryptocurrencies whose values are pegged to a fiat currency or other assets, as securities. In a draft bill published Tuesday, Representative Sylvia Garcia of Texas, Democrat, introduced legislation to the House Financial Services Committee to regulate stablecoins under the Securities Act of 1933, seeking to provide clarity in an area of the bill. In an area the bill suggests lacks regulatory guidance. The bill states, quote, "The market value of such digital asset is determined in whole or in significant part, directly or indirectly, by reference to the value of a pool of or basket of assets including digital assets held, designated, or managed by one or more persons. The proposed legislation appears to be a response to the Facebook-led Libra cryptocurrency, which the social media giant introduced in June of 2019. The cryptocurrency is meant to be a stablecoin pegged to a basket of fiat currencies. Lawmakers have urged Facebook and its partners not to launch Libra, and indeed to halt all development entirely until regulatory questions around the project and its governance can be resolved. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is scheduled to testify before the committee on Wednesday. If signed into law, the rule would give the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, jurisdictional authority over all stablecoins and their issuers, and it'll do no such thing. The bill's introduction does not mean it will ever become law. First, it would need to be voted out of committee, passed by the House of Representatives, taken up and passed by the Senate, and signed into law by the U.S. President. It is unclear what sort of support the bill has at present. However, former Commodities Futures Trading Commission Chairman Gary Gensler believes the Libra already looks like a security, testifying before the Financial Services Committee in July that the project looks similar to an exchange-traded fund, which does fall within the SEC's purview. The bill was introduced jointly with another draft bill sponsored by Representative Michael San Nicolas from Guam, which would bar national securities exchanges from listing a security by an issuer if the issuer or an executive affiliated with it received compensation in the form of a managed stablecoin. Wow. That's a pretty far out there definition here. I mean, I guess that's a concern to be had, that somebody would be compensated by somebody else with a managed stablecoin. But I'm curious about that. Let's get into that. But yeah, I think that, this kind of raises my suspicions about Facebook Coin. How it's not really meant to ever launch. They're trying to create legislation that will inhibit you from being able to start new cryptocurrencies, right? And the way that they're doing that is by looking to Facebook Coin, or Libra rather, and trying to regulate it away, basically. Using the term basket for basket of fiat currencies and other commodities, that's straight out of two particular white papers, the one for Libra as well as, and it's actually the first place we saw it, which was for the Petro. The white paper for the Petro described it as being backed by a basket of commodities, i.e. oil, gold, and I guess diamonds and some other stuff. Point being that currency turned out to be bullshit. And I really think that Facebook Coin in the longer term is going to be the same. The reason why we do not use anything like dollars or gold or silver or anything like that backing Bitcoin, and there's always this bitch that Bitcoin isn't backed by anything, or cryptocurrencies aren't backed by anything. If I had silver or gold or any of those other things, I wouldn't be trying to use them as collateral for a cryptocurrency. I would be saying, hey, yo, I got these assets. You want to buy them? This is the exchange rate I'm willing to sell them to you at. and we would be doing business. But the idea that we need to back cryptocurrencies with these items it's completely silly. And when we're looking at things like the Petra, I mean, I always knew the Petra was going to be bupkis because, number one, you cannot guarantee, even if you do verify that the commodities do exist in the volumes that are described on the ledger of the portfolio that's being used, to back up a coin. Even if you can verify that it all exists at one point, you cannot continuously guarantee that it will stay there. Not only that, you have no guarantee that the issuer of the coin might not, say, issue another coin using the same asset as the collateral or backing for their coin. You have no idea. More importantly, you have no idea that the coins that you've got in your hand aren't themselves issued against a basket of commodities that the issuer themselves does not own. And this is the only reason why I like the idea of this bill, is because stablecoins do not have the same backing mechanism that cryptocurrencies do. And again, the idea that cryptocurrencies aren't backed by anything is utter bullshit. If a cryptocurrency exists, it means that somebody somewhere decided to mine it. No mining rewards. No mining rewards, no Bitcoin. No Bitcoin Cash, no Verge, no Litecoin, no Monero. That's how this whole thing works. You dedicate hardware and resources, and you get paid in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, not necessarily in a like-for-like fashion, but actual work has to go into the creation of new Bitcoin. It's not something that just, the fucking Federal Reserve can't wave its magic wand and print up Bitcoin. That's what quote-unquote backs it, what secures it. Is the fact that there are only going to be so many in existence ever, and they are generated at a predictable rate, although not necessarily by the same person, and there is no trust involved as far as the fact that there was a series of miners out there that were mining. You can see it on the fucking network right now. You can go to any block explorer and see the transactions as they're being included in a block and being confirmed, getting their first confirmation, being included in the blockchain. You can see all that shit happening. But that eliminates the need to quote-unquote trust anybody. And that's what's different about stablecoins, is that you have to trust that the issuer actually has the collateral and that there is no other encumbrances on that capital. It's not a conditional thing. They don't just have 12 months of access to it and then they have to give it back up again. It is their fucking money. Right? You have to trust that. You don't have to trust that somebody mined Bitcoin. Although you may have to trust the issuer of a stablecoin if they are claiming that they actually have Bitcoin or a certain amount of Bitcoin or how, like a certain cash value worth of Bitcoin, where they're saying, we've got $300 million worth of Bitcoin that we're issuing this against. And that does seem to be the claim for at least some of the assets on Tether's balance sheet. And see, that's really where I'm hoping that if something like this were to be passed and it were to be implemented and it were to be enforced, that it would be enforced universally, not selectively. Because if it were enforced universally, JP Morgan coin, down. Goldman Sachs coin, down. No, there's not going to be any more USDC. I think the only one that will actually exist after that will be Gemini coin. But again, we're talking about at least 2 years before any bill like this would make it into law and actually be signed and all that. So not a real high likelihood, but if it ever did, the majority of the stable coins that exist right now will stop existing. Because I think they exist only because there is no SEC organization or type organization that's coming after them and saying, hey, show us your books. Hey, show us your actual physical reserves. Let's see it. Open up those vaults. Because that's not happening or hasn't happened yet. It's probably never going to happen. But we do have issuers that don't actually have the collateral, and we do have exchanges that are counting those coins as though they are fully backed 1-to-1 with US dollars or other fiat currency. And so it's creating a bit of a danger to the market at large that these tools exist. These financial tools. Because as far as I'm concerned, they are counterfeit fiat. They don't actually have the money that is behind them, or that their currency is supposedly pegged to. And so their claims of what it's worth, in my mind, are bullshit. And people are being forced to give them value because on exchanges, that's what they're using for dollars. Or, as a proxy for a US dollar. Anyway, so I dug up a couple of things here, and I'm trying to figure out which one is which. Let's just go with this one first, because it's only 4 pages long. And this is for the 116th Congress, first session. There is not a resolution number on this thing, so the summary of it, I guess, is to prohibit the listing of certain securities if the issuer, a director of the issuer, or an executive officer of the issuer buys or sells a managed stablecoin and for other purposes. In the House of Representatives, Mr. San Nicholas introduced the following bill, which is was referred to the committee on, and it does not give us a date. A bill to prohibit the listing of certain securities if the issuer, a director of the issuer, executive of the issuer, yeah, I got that all right, be it enacted by the Senate and the House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Section 1. Prohibition on listing. Section 6 of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, USC 78F, is amended by adding at the end of the following: prohibition on listing. In general, not later than 180 days after the date of enactment of this section, the Commission shall by rule direct the national securities exchanges to prohibit the listing of a security of an issuer if the issuer, a director of the issuer, or an executive officer of the issuer, after the date of the registration of such a security, a. received compensation in the form of a managed stablecoin, b. bought or sold a managed stablecoin, or c. was otherwise affiliated with a person who bought or sold a managed stablecoin after the date of the registration of the security. Wow. Number 2, application. Any rule issued by the Commission pursuant to paragraph 1 shall apply to securities registered with the Commission after the date on which the Commission issues a rule pursuant to paragraph 1. 3. Definitions. For the purposes of this subsection B, managed stablecoin. The term managed stablecoin means a digital asset that is not a security registered under Section 8A of the Investment Company Act of 1940 and 2 satisfies one or more of the following. 1. The market value of such a digital asset is determined, in whole or in significant part, directly or indirectly, by reference to the value of a pool or a basket of assets, including digital assets, held, designated, or managed by one or more persons. Number 2. One or more holders of such a digital asset, directly or indirectly, are entitled to obtain consideration or other assets, including other digital assets, and any sovereign currency of a foreign government or the United States, in exchange for the digital asset, the amount of which payment is determined, in whole or in significant part, directly or indirectly, on the basis of the value of a pool or basket of assets, including digital assets, held, designated, or managed by one or more persons. C. Digital asset. The term digital asset means any asset, contract, agreement, or transaction, including a representation of an economic, proprietary, or access right that is stored in a computer-readable form and has or will have a transaction history that is recorded in a distributed ledger, digital ledger, or other digital data structure. A digital asset may be a managed stablecoin and a security. A digital asset, according to this description, could be a lot of other things too. Let's see here. And I think we're to the end. Yeah, we're to the end of it. There's some assumptions in this that I'm not entirely comfortable with. For one thing, the end part of digital asset may be a managed stablecoin and a security. I think a lot of this stuff is just really confusing, because the fact of the matter is that a digital asset, Bitcoin, could be considered a digital asset according to this description. However, Bitcoin is not the same thing as, say, Tether, or USDC, or GUSD, or any of the other quote-unquote stable coins out there. I don't know. I don't think this is actually going to come to law, and if it does, I don't really think it will affect the people that need to be affected the most. Although, I don't know, it could work against Tether, but if it does, it'll also work against Goldman Sachs. It'll also work against JP Morgan. And so, yeah, I would be willing to bet that they're probably lobbying for the passage, or not the passage of this, the dismissal of this thing, that basically they'd be trying to convince Congress to just shit can it and walk on. And I would agree with them on that. You know, the fact of the matter is that this level of market intrusion by the Congress, it's not, as far as I'm concerned, it's not really constitutional. You know, I mean, it's not within the line of America as intended, and that's just my perspective. You know, I know a lot of people have been convinced that the government should be regulating every aspect of the market, but I got to tell you, I think that is a really big miscall. That what people don't understand is that things like Bitcoin, those don't happen for no reason. Bitcoin happened because the currencies that we've been using have been readily devaluating in front of our very eyes. And the managers of those funds, or the currencies themselves, have shown themselves repeatedly to be grossly inept. And this isn't to say that they're constantly so, but it is to say that if we could possibly replace them with say, a string of code in an algorithm or two, we should probably do that. Only because their participation costs money. And they do have pretty expensive tastes too, I must say. But the point being that they cost money. When they fuck up, they cost money. When they're trying to comply, they cost money. Again, if we can replace them with something that doesn't cost money, or not as much money at least, why wouldn't we? They would certainly replace us if it cost them less money to do something a certain way. Maybe manufacturing widgets. If they happen to own a company that made widgets, and there was another manufacturing process that they could utilize that, maybe had 10% of the employees that their current manufacturing process has, don't you think they would do it? Fuck yeah, they would do it. Why not do it to them? Statistical process control, man. It works both ways. And this is the danger that I knew this back in, I want to say it was 1998 or 1999, when I was first reading the statistical process control descriptions or the processes and the policies of it. I knew immediately. It was like just a big fucking lightning bolt. I hadn't even stepped onto the manufacturing floor yet, but I understood. I'm like, wait a minute. If the goal is continuous improvement, and the process that we go about getting to there is to constantly review our manufacturing processes to find out if there's ways that we can adjust the throughput in each manufacturing step in order to maximize throughput, maximize efficiency, maximize output, that eventually you would probably work out all of your efficiencies out on the manufacturing floor and on all of your manufacturing steps, and eventually you would have to start looking at things like your management hierarchy. Because, doing all of that tweaking on your statistical process control and your just-in-time and all that other shit, you find out that you need a lot fewer people than you currently have working for you. Well, if you have 1/3 as many employees out on the floor, that means you need at least 1/3 less management personnel because you don't have as many people for them to manage. We can get rid of those guys too. And that process is progressive, that the further up the hierarchy you get, a higher percentage of the personnel you can get rid of. And this is, but it was like the hidden secret. We only talked about going downstream, where we find out that we only need one shift manager for 2 shifts instead of one shift manager for every shift, right? And so we get rid of one guy there. And then we go down another step, but now we've already eliminated half of all of the manufacturing coverage for one department, right? And so when you step up, you probably don't even need that next hierarchy because you winnowed it down to one at your shift manager section or layer, right? You can get rid of the next layer. And maybe even the next layer after that. And you have to get to where you have 3 or 4 different managers covering different departments. And so again, manufacturing this statistical process control, like I said, when I hadn't even made it out to the manufacturing floor yet, but I understood that eventually it would go back up. It would go back up the line, that they would be neutralizing several layers of the management hierarchy in this whole desire for continuous improvement. Well, the same can be said about cryptocurrencies, is that, if somebody does take the leap into cryptocurrencies to begin with, that's all that's necessary. After they've made that transition to whether it be Bitcoin or not, after they've made that transition with a little bit of their monetary value, they don't even have to put all of it in crypto. But after they made that conceptual and realistic and financial and economic and all that other shift to having some monetary value in crypto, they can go anywhere from there. They don't even have to stay in Bitcoin. They could go to Ethereum from there. They can go to Monero from there, or EOS or Neos or any one of other cryptocurrencies. And again, when these guys are talking about trying to manage anything in this space, it really helps to keep that in mind, that we're not really locked into a single phase paradigm here, man. It's like you come into crypto and it's a prism. A myriad of options are now available to you, and the limitations placed on them are nowhere to be found, other than you don't necessarily have too many real world stores and whatnot that are using cryptocurrencies as money. But I believe that in itself is going to change too. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. I was rambling on quite long there. But the first music break we kind of went over just a tad, so I had to make up for it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down some Tool, Schism, here on Coin Metal. And that was Iron Maiden with 2 Minutes to Midnight. Gosh, I can remember when the video for that was created. It was a very, very interesting time. It was back before they actually had a designated host for Headbangers Ball, and so they were bringing in bands to host it. And as a matter of fact, Iron Maiden was the host the night that they played 2 Minutes to Midnight the first time they premiered it. It's pretty cool. Anyway, it's funny when we think about Facebook Coin and how much controversy has been drummed up and how much concern has been drummed up. They didn't have all this concern before Facebook decided to throw their hat in the ring, and it's really funny because before then we had entities like Goldman Sachs, IBM, Intel, fucking JP Morgan, Visa, MasterCard. All these people are fucking issuing patents and all this other stuff. All of a sudden, Facebook decides to get serious about starting up a project, and people just fucking freak out. Oh my god, we can't let that happen. And it's really funny to me. It's like, where was all this concern before? And like I said, I read the Facebook coin, the Libra coin white paper, and I don't think it's very likely that it's ever going to come out. And as a matter of fact, I'm starting to really think that all it's been is like there's enough details involved in Facebook Coin's white paper about the supposed function of the coin and so on, that they can use it as a poster boy for, pointing at and saying, this is how you have to fucking operate in order for this to be legal. And if you can't do this, then it's not fucking legal, right? The big problem with all of that is that the one thing that Facebook Coin isn't, Libra Coin isn't, is Bitcoin. There's nothing about Libra, the issuance of it, the function of it. There's nothing about it that will make Bitcoin illegal or something that you need to be licensed to participate in or anything like that. And it is really simple. You have only, I keep pointing back to it, but Ethereum, they have shown us that if the fucking miners don't want to do it, the miners aren't going to do it. If the miners don't want to change to proof of stake from proof of work to proof of stake, they're not going to fucking do it. And so the idea that U.S. lawmakers or other such entities are going to be able to point to Bitcoin and say, you will do this. No. Most people are just leave their computers as is, leave their miners as is, keep mining like they were yesterday, and after a while, U.S. lawmakers will just shut up. Anyway, moving on. I got this next one here I want to get into, but I've got a few others. And we started off on Libra, so let's go ahead and stick with Libra for right now. I got this thing here. It's on CoinDesk.com. Zuckerberg, Facebook would quit Libra if the association launched prematurely. This is by Nicholas D. and Mark Hochstein. So double penis. This is authored October 23rd, 2019 at 1615 UTC. Washington. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg told lawmakers that the company would pull out of the Libra Association in the event the consortium launched its proposed cryptocurrency without all needed regulatory approvals. In a hearing of the House Financial Services Committee Wednesday, Zuckerberg fielded pointed questions on a variety of controversial issues around the social network, from election meddling to housing discrimination to deep fakes. But Libra, the proposed price-stable cryptocurrency Facebook conceived and set up the association to run, was the foremost item on the agenda. And many of the CEO's answers to lawmakers' questions underscored Facebook's official position is that it no longer controls the project. Specifically, Zuckerberg reiterated his commitment to satisfying regulators' concerns before launching Libra. Representative Bill Huizinga, I guess that's from Michigan? My apologies, sir. Homed in on the apparent tension between this pledge and the idea that the Libra Association is independent of Facebook, asking, quote, "You said that you wouldn't launch without U.S. regulator approval. What happens if the association decides to launch despite that?" Zuckerberg replied to this hypothetical, quote, "I believe we would be forced to leave the association." In such a scenario, he went on, quote, "I would hope that the association will weigh our recommendation and what we say publicly that we think should happen. If we don't receive the clearances that we feel like we would need to move forward, and the association chooses to move forward without us, then we will be in a position where we will not be a part of the association," said Zuckerberg. As remote as the possibility may seem, Facebook wouldn't be the first member to abandon Libra. Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, and eBay all pulled out a few weeks ago. When Representative Ann Wagner, of Missouri asked why he thought they did so, Zuckerberg said, "It's a risky project." Anonymous wallets. Similarly, Zuckerberg committed to preventing anonymous use of the Libra wallet, but stopped short of promising lawmakers that the Libra cryptocurrency would never be used without identification. Noting that the House had just passed a bill to crack down on shell companies, Representative Carolyn Maloney asked Zuckerberg, "Will you commit to not supporting anonymous wallets for Libra?" At first, he answered obliquely, telling Maloney, quote, "We see a range of cryptocurrencies. We are trying to build a safe and secure and regulated alternative. As a big company, we're not going to do something that's unregulated or decentralized. We want to get the same standard on money laundering or CFTC financing, counterterrorism financing." Unsatisfied with the answer, the lawmaker pressed him, quote, "I don't think you can have strong AML, anti-money laundering practices, and anonymous wallets." Maloney said, quote, "I see this as a new loophole for criminals looking to hide money. Will you commit to not having anonymous wallets? You're creating a whole new currency that could be potentially anonymous." Zuckerberg answered that Calibra, the Facebook subsidiary developing the wallet for Libra, quote, "is going to have strong identity verification and work with all the regulators to make sure we're at the standard of AML or CFT that people expect." But he added a caveat, quote, "I can't speak for the whole association. You have my commitment from Facebook." Joined at the hip? Despite Zuckerberg's comments, separating Facebook from Libra may be a challenge for the nascent association. During the hearing, Representative Ayanna Presley said Facebook is Libra, with Zuckerberg acting as the face of the company and therefore the new cryptocurrency. Actually, it's not a cryptocurrency, so fuck you. Her comments were echoed after the hearing by Representatives Madeline Dean, Democrat of Pennsylvania, and Sylvia Garcia, Democrat of Texas, who told the group of reporters that separating the two might be difficult. Zuckerberg carefully called it an independent association 5 or 10 times, but it doesn't mean it makes it so, and I don't think it's going to be the end of it, Garcia said. I don't think that's going to be the end of it either. Look, like I said, I think that they're basically playing pin the tail on the donkey here. And the donkey itself is actually cryptocurrencies and not Facebook coin. Libra, Facebook, none of this shit is fucking decentralized. None of it is a quote-unquote cryptocurrency. It is a payment mechanism. Similar to PayPal or, what's that other fucking one? Similar to PayPal. We'll just stick with PayPal for it. But, there are others. Stripe, Square, these are payment services providers. Okay, and the idea is that they're trying to corral cryptocurrencies into being only usable through these assholes, and of course, they won't be able to let you use them anonymously through them. No, they'll require full AML, CFTC fucking bullshit to let you use your money. Because we can't have you using it without it being taxed. Oh no, we got to make sure that Congress gets a cut, and Senate gets a cut, and your state gets a cut, and everybody else gets a cut of your monetary transactions. Well, fuck all of that. We don't need your permission. We don't need your participation. You can just go fuck off and go do your own thing with this technology. Anyway. So, yeah. I think, again, playing pin the tail on the donkey here with Libra and Facebook, and trying to use them as a model or use the model that they create from this effort as something that they're going to try and enforce on other organizations within cryptocurrencies. And again, I don't see that as being all that effectual. That we've seen multiple times in different countries their different approaches to cryptocurrencies, and all of them come out the same way. And I've said this multiple times before, but I think it bears repeating, or it needs repeating, is that lawmakers, legislators, governors, presidents, premiers, kings, they're all involved in cryptocurrencies. They all own some. They're all mining it. They have all got exchange accounts. They're all participating. And so when it comes down to how to regulate this, they're playing a game, and the game is kick you the fuck out of everything else but being a user, an end user, not capable of determining any protocol changes or policy changes or deploying a cryptocurrency. No, you're just an end user. They want to relegate you to being an end user, but make you continue to use cryptocurrencies, even though they've kicked you out of being a miner or anything important. But they want you to continue to use them, and more importantly, they want to be able to tax your every transaction using them. And when you hear in articles and whatnot, they talk about regulatory clarity or the need for more regulatory clarity. They're talking about market dominance of big players such as Facebook and Visa and MasterCard and all these people versus you. When they're the majority of the transaction processors, then they will have quote-unquote regulatory clarity. Meaning that all of the currently regulated entities can be compliant. The problem is that they are not expected to do the same things that we are. And this is another point about BitLicense. See, what they don't talk about too much about BitLicense is that the head of the NYDFS has carte blanche, has ultimate control over what regulatory expectations can be made per individual company involved. So Goldman Sachs, they've already got several banking relationships. They're already regulated by several regulatory entities. And they're good buddies with the NYDFS. And so the head of the NYDFS can kind of give them a wink and say, oh yeah, these guys are cool, no problem, we'll give them a BitLicense, everything is cool. Whereas they can hole up with Bittrex for 4 fucking years and impose on Bittrex the necessity to have to participate with this advisory board, so they have to have some of their personnel interacting with this advisory board for 4 fucking years, reporting to them, right? And yet they can still say no. After 4 years, be like, yeah, nah, no BitLicense for you. You can't operate in New York. We've had a hand up your ass for 4 years. You've been viable this entire time, but due to some questions that we have about 2 accounts out of the several million customer accounts that you have, due to some questions about 2 accounts that we have, you can't have a BitLicense. I mean, can you believe this shit? But that's how they've been running it. And I predicted when I read the thing that is exactly the way that they would do it. Say you're the head of the NYDFS, right? say your nephew is interested in cryptocurrencies and he wants to launch an exchange. You can wave your magic wand as the head of the NYDFS, regardless of the fact that the kid is actually related to you, is a blood relative to you. None of that shit matters. You wave the magic wand, give him a 90-day provisional license, give him a 90-day provisional license, no application fee, no $5,000 non-refundable application fee, no several months of review and following and all that. Nothing. No. Wave the magic wand, snap the fingers, bam, kid, you are now an exchange operator within the state of New York. That's the kind of power that is delegated to the head of the NYDFS via bit license. Which I find that to be fucking ludicrous myself, but we'll just leave it at that. But the point being is that's the kind of control that bit license allowed over New York. And I'm not gonna go there. Anyway, I got this thing here. It's on. It's that other discussion draft for some legislation, and this is for to establish the treatment of managed stablecoins under the securities laws and for other purposes. Let's get into this thing. It's about 6 pages long. It's perfect for us. Let's see. In the House of Representatives, Ms. Garcia of Texas introduced the following bill, which is referred to the committee on, and of course this is a draft, so there is no date there. A bill to establish the treatment of managed stablecoins under the securities laws and for other purposes, being enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. Section 1, short title. This act may be cited as the Stablecoins Are Securities Act of 2019. God damn. I swear they listen to the show. I swear they do. Continuing on, Section 2, sense of Congress. It is the sense of Congress that digital assets known as managed stablecoins are investment contracts and therefore are securities within the meaning given the term in Section 2A of the Securities Act of 1933, and 2, because issuers of managed stablecoins nevertheless maintain that managed stablecoins are not securities, it is appropriate for Congress to provide clarity by amending statutory definitions of the term security to include managed stablecoins. They're doing this the entirely wrong way. It's going to get challenged in court. Section 3, managed stablecoins. Definitions under the Securities Act of 1933, Section 2A of the Securities Act of 1933, USC 77B-A is amended in paragraph 1A by inserting regardless of form and any of the foregoing, and by inserting managed stablecoin after national securities exchange relating to foreign currency, and number 2, by adding at the end of the following the term managed stablecoin means a digital asset that A is not a security registered under Section 8A of the Investment Company Act of 1940, and B satisfies one or more of the following. Number 1, the market value of such digital asset is determined in whole or in significant part, directly or indirectly, by reference to the value of a pool or basket of assets, including digital assets held, designated, or managed by one or more persons. Number 2, one or more holders of such digital asset directly or indirectly are entitled to obtain consideration or other assets including other digital assets and any other sovereign currency of a foreign government or the United States in exchange for the digital asset, the amount of which payment is determined in whole or in significant part directly or indirectly on the basis of the value of a pool or basket of assets, including digital assets held, designated, or managed by one or more persons. Yeah, they're going about this the entire wrong way. The term digital asset means any asset, contract, agreement, or transaction, including representation of an economic, proprietary, or access right that is stored in a computer-readable form and has or will have a transaction history that is recorded in a distributed ledger, digital ledger, or other digital data structure. A digital asset may be a managed stablecoin or a security. Yeah, it could be, but it's not necessarily one. B. Definitions under the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, Section 3A of the Securities Exchange Act of 1934, 15 U.S.C. 78C is amended in paragraph 10A by inserting regardless of form after any of the foregoing, B by inserting managed stablecoin after the National Securities Exchange relating to foreign currency, and C by inserting sovereign after but shall not include, and 2 by inserting sovereign after but shall not include. So, but shall not include sovereign. I wonder. I wish we had more context for that particular one. Anyway, 2 by adding at the end of the following, the term managed stablecoin has the meaning given the term in Section 2A of the Securities Act of 1933. 82. The term digital asset has the meaning given the term in Section 2A of the Securities Act of 1933. Definitions under the Investment Company Act of 1940, Section 2A of the Investment Company Act of 1940, blah, 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 is amended by inserting regardless of form after any of the foregoing and inserting managed stablecoin BS, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Give us anything new. E. SEC rulemaking. The Securities and Exchange Commission may issue rules and regulations to further define the terms managed stablecoin and digital asset, as such terms are defined in Section 2A of the Securities Act of 1933. Again, there's nothing in this that stops you from creating your own cryptocurrency and deploying it and allowing the public at large to mine it, to develop for it, to list it on an exchange, to offer products and services denominated in it. So commerce is still open. Free and open commerce, peer-to-peer commerce is still open. Can still do that freely and legally with cryptocurrencies. Another term of which was not represented in this piece of legislation, appropriately at least. And again, it isn't up to them to define exactly what a cryptocurrency is. They do say stable coins a lot, which is good. It's fine. But again, they're going about it the complete wrong way. They're going about it in terms of the stablecoin as being an actual asset. They're assuming it's an asset because somebody else assumes it's an asset. What they're not doing, what they should be doing, is treating them as issuers of a security. They're not really going after that. I mean, they mention it obliquely in this, okay, but the requirements of the issuer, that's really where they should be concentrating. there has to be some sort of actual audit, like a real fucking audit. Why anybody thinks an attestation is an appropriate replacement for an audit is I have no fucking idea. I really don't. But somewhere along the line, somebody did. Somebody said, oh, an attestation works. And that's not true. I've never seen any piece of legislation anywhere, or at least according to my knowledge, it's not true. I've never read any regulations that have said that an attestation by like a legal notary or bank entity or something like that, that an attestation is an appropriate replacement for an audit, an actual audit of the underlying assets represented by a stable coin or anything else, as a security or a any kind of investment vehicle. Again, there's never been any that I have read. It might exist out there, and that's why there's nobody breaking down the doors of Tether currently. That could change. That could really change. But I think, again, over the longer term, the entities that are going to have something to worry about with any of the regulation that we have reviewed will be people that, for whatever reason, thought that they were slick or thought that they were special and didn't really understand why cryptocurrencies are set up the way they are, to work the way that they are. And because of that, they will continue to run into all of the regulatory burdens and borders that were already existing when Bitcoin started. I mean, this shit is academic. It's like during the first 6 months of people talking about Bitcoin, before it was even launched. Not before it was... Well, yeah, before it was launched. While it was just happening on the discussion boards, they were talking about things like, how will we get around regulators? How will we get around their attempts to impede our progress? Oh, well, the obvious thing was to stay completely out of regulated entities and outside of the regulatory borders that were already established for them to operate within. And so, like I said, Bitcoin right out of the box was designed specifically to circumvent all of this bullshit. And it still does. And of course, again, there are reasons for that. Mostly because the legislators that are involving themselves at all in cryptocurrencies are already invested in cryptocurrencies. And so it's against their financial interest to put up any borders or any additional taxes that they themselves might experience some sort of payment on or have a necessity to pay where they currently don't. And there is some benefit to regulations for some entities. But I think too many of the would-be regulators look at this and they can recognize that there are some points of regulation, but they can also see where their attempts to assert some sort of regulatory boundaries at this point would be very premature and would also limit their ability to make money on it. Again, contradicting their own self-interest. Which, we're not going to do that. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And, I haven't been playing enough of this Irreversible Mechanism, and it's because there's one or two soft songs on it. And, as much as I really don't care, some of my fans really like the hard stuff. So, let's go with Evolution, whatever that means. I think they left an S out of there. It's probably absolution, but anyway, Here it is, irreversible mechanism. And that was Skindred with Nobody. I got one last article here I wanted to get into, only because it makes me laugh every time FinCEN talks about stuff. Anyway, this is on Coindesk.com. FinCEN director warns of hard time for crypto firms that don't follow law. This is by Nicholas D. It was authored October 22nd, 2019 at 1440 UTC. There is no ambiguity. Crypto startups must follow U.S. anti-money laundering laws or else suffer the consequences, said the nation's top AML regulator. Kenneth Blanco, director of the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, FinCEN, warned the crypto industry Monday to take heed of the Bank Secrecy Act and other AML regulations when setting up businesses, because this agency certainly will. Blanco, who spoke at Georgetown University as part of the first day of DC FinTech Week, told moderator Chris Brummer that companies have no excuses for not knowing the law. Quote, "What we tell everyone is, if you're going to innovate, you better make sure you're complying with your regulations prior to executing that innovation or prior going to market." Blanco said, "You better make sure that happens, because frankly, you don't get to build it and then everyone comes over around it." He went on to add, quote, "You have to make sure that you comply with the law first and then you can execute it and get to market. Otherwise, that's not happening. I'll tell you that if you can't comply with your BSA, you're going to have a problem. You must comply. And we as a regulator, as the primary regulator, and as the administrator of the BSA, we will make sure that you do, and you're going to have a hard time if you don't." FinCEN won't accept that a company, quote, "can't comply with the law either," he said. "Any firms which do not believe they are able to fulfill the requirements of the BSA should not come to market," Blanco said. Quote, "That's our expectation is going to be moving forward." Or that's what our expectation is going to be moving forward. Yeah, go fuck yourself. Blanco's comments come at a time when the industry observers expect enforcement actions around money laundering, due in part to recent joint statement FinCEN published with the Securities and Exchange Commission and Commodities Futures Trading Commission. Exciting yet scary. Warnings aside, Blanco praised the idea of innovation, though he warned the potential national security risks throughout his speech. Quote, "Some of it is really exciting," he said. "The good is, wow, we can really protect society in many different ways or enjoy more job growth based on these kinds of inventions and ideas." No, you can't. On the other hand, it's scary how some of these same new tools can be used by bad actors, he said. Too fucking bad. Like any innovation, you have to be careful, because sometimes those people who show up when you're innovating are the wrong people, and the people who are trying to exploit it for the gaps that are there. So you have to keep that in mind, he warned. Yeah, whatever. That's exactly why I'd want people to use it. "These malicious actors are what inspired laws like the BSA," he said. Bullshit. Society would want to protect the elderly and other groups that are susceptible to cyber fraud and other digital crimes. FinCEN is not anti-technology. Bullshit. Blanco later added. The agency is technology neutral, and despite his warnings to the industry, he believes that tech should continue advancing, though he reiterated it should be developed responsibly. What if it eliminates the need for FinCEN and the state and other organizations? Is innovation still good then? Continuing. Innovation must be responsible and must be reasonable. You can't just build a car that only goes 190 miles an hour and say, change the speed limit. It's not going to work that way, he said, concluding, your car is going to have to adapt. Otherwise, it's not coming to the road. Bottom line. That's the message. Yeah, you can go fuck yourself, Kenneth. You know, Mr. Blanco seems to not understand the fact that his – department does not get to create laws. They get to enforce laws. They don't get to create laws. And that's a challenge that they are going to face at some point or another. That they don't get to just redefine the fucking BSA and stick it on stuff like it actually applies. Especially if there's no federal creation involved here. You know, we're not talking about US dollars. We're talking about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. So you go ahead and you fucking deploy. This motherfucker has no idea what he's talking about. What he will be able to nail you on, though, is things like layer 2 solutions. And I've warned you people about this multitude of times. There is a reason why Bitcoin works peer-to-peer. There is a reason why it was designed to work peer-to-peer. So assholes like this cannot come along later on and tell you that you cannot do it. There have been long established laws concerning third parties and third party intermediaries and third party payment service providers. There have been laws on the books for fucking decades about that. And that is why Bitcoin was set up to work peer-to-peer. Because Satoshi Nakamoto knew that if there was any point that the regulators would be able to grab a hold of it on, it would be on third-party service providers. And so, if you want to take this guy seriously, okay, here it is. Design your cryptocurrency and your wallet to work separate from any other organization, any other service provider. Design it like Bitcoin, to where if I have a wallet, I can receive funds, I can send funds, I don't need an exchange account, I don't even need an email or a phone number or fucking anything. Set it up to where it doesn't do biometric scanning, it doesn't take a picture of me, it doesn't need a fucking thumbprint, it doesn't need my social security number, my phone number, my email address, my physical address, any of that bullshit. Design it that way and you're going to stay clear of the necessity to interact with this man. But you start trying to make yourself quote-unquote legitimate by affiliating yourself with existing legacy payment service providers or taking their money, you will start running afoul of this monkey. He will be able to take you down. Yeah, and it is with that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework! And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else can do it for you. Certainly not the CFTC, FinCEN, SEC, or any of those organizations. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, I haven't picked one out, of course. You know, I'm gonna have to leave it to the very last moment, because that's what I do. And you know, I already played a song by Wayne Static, but I don't get to play this one enough, and I really like this song. And so here it is, Around the Turn, Last Dance, here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent evening. Good night.